and a very warm welcome to You've Earned It's Retiree Reflection video series, which features real conversations with people who are living out their best lives. And You've Earned It is hosting this video series. And first of all, we would like to say a big thank you to the sponsor of the series, Just SA. Thank you, Just. And our hope is that the people we interview will inspire you to seek that purpose in retirement and to explore that passion, that thing that energizes you. And we also hope that you pick up a key takeaway that assists you in the financial planning of your retirement, or it encourages you to save for something meaningful, or maybe you'll get a sudden insight as what you can do in that third part of your life. And I'm quite sure that the lovely guest that we have with us this morning will inspire you in many ways. She certainly inspired me. And she is a devout follower of the Great Unretirement. She is a person who has no intention of slowing down. And she is totally in love with China and the East. And she would love to share her passion with South African 60-plussers. So a very big welcome, Liz. Liz Linsell from Marina de Gama in Cape Town. So Liz, after having had a chat with you and introduced you a few minutes or a couple of minutes ago as the person who is following the trend of the Great Unretirement, I think we should kickstart this conversation by asking you about your definition of retirement.
Okay, right. Well, I have done quite a lot of research and checking out different definitions of the meaning of retirement. And the one that really resonated with me is the word retiree, the meaning of the French word is to withdraw. And I thought, withdraw from what? Withdraw from life, withdraw from work, your job. And that's basically what it means, to retire from your job and stop working. And I thought, gosh, that's not really me. So I'm definitely not retired.
Definitely not retired for you. But I know that you're a great adventurer, and I know that travel is your number one passion. And as we said earlier, you've got a great love for China and the East. So tell us about that passion of yours and some of the countries that you visited.
Okay, well, I'll start with China because China really is my passion. And I first went there in 2016. My son had gone there to teach English, and I went to visit him. It was while I was still working. I was working as a fundraiser, as you know, and I just fell in love with the country. I went there with all the usual Western preconceived ideas, misconceptions about China. And I just realized after spending a week there for Chinese New Year, I'd got it completely wrong. And as is the case with so much travel, you don't really understand a place and the people until you go there yourself. You can't rely on the media. So that's how I first went to go to China. And I realized that I knew nothing about China. When I came back, I was actually quite ashamed that I knew nothing. We were not taught anything at school. Very little positive news exists about China and its history and culture and so on. So I took it upon myself to learn everything I could. I devoured everything I could on China, books, art, music, YouTube videos, of which there are thousands and thousands. And I became something of an expert, which made it so different for me when I went back the second time, because now I understood a little bit more. I'd learned a little bit of the language, so I could communicate, however, basically. And that really changed my whole perception of China. And I've been going there ever since, except for the COVID years.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how I got to fall in love with China. I think I have an Asian soul.
And the other countries that you visited, you've done quite a lot of traveling. So just name some of the countries that you've been to.
Well, when I wasn't able to go to China over COVID, as you know, it closed down pretty harshly, I wasn't going to give up traveling. So as soon as we could get on a plane again, I went to Bali. And people had told me about it, raved about it. And in the course of going to Bali, which I also fell in love with, amazing people, incredible culture. I also went to Thailand and also explored quite a lot of Africa. You know, we have an amazing continent. and there's so much to see just on our back doorstep. So, yeah, but I think Asia really is really deep in my heart, and I want to go and explore a lot more, especially
Yeah.
China.
Lovely, lovely. I identify with that completely because on a personal level, also the East and Africa are also number one passion in terms of travel. But tell us about that aha moment that you have that morphed this passion of yours into a business.
Yes, well, that's a very interesting question. I was in a fundraising job up until 2018. So by the time I came to my sell-by date, I was told that time's up, you've got to go. And I'd been to China twice. And a lot of people had asked me questions. I'd done talks at the U3A. I'd held a little informal China group in my house, drinking Chinese tea and talking about all sorts of topics. I discovered a lot of people had had Chinese experiences and wanted to talk about them and share them. So I realized then that there was a huge interest in China, but people didn't really know how to get there, what to do. I mean, it's such a massive country. You know, where do you begin? And so many of the big tour companies, it's sort of, if it's Thursday, it must be Beijing type of tours. And I thought, no, there must be a different way of doing this. So I decided I'd set up my own specialized, personalized tour company, sharing what I knew, where I'd been, what I'd done, the experiences that I'd had. And I was actually sitting in the bar at the airport with my friend. And she was flying off somewhere exciting, and we were comparing notes. And she said, you know, Liz, you really should turn this into, the rest of your life. make a business out of it. And she said, when I come back, I'll join you. She didn't, but that's another story. So that's what happens. And so I looked into all the ins and outs of how to start the business. Quite complicated when you're dealing with foreign currency and so on. But I have had a business before. I was in advertising, as you know, back in Zimbabwe. So the logistics of running a business and marketing and so on, being in travel was new to me. But it's basically planning, identifying needs and people what to do. So that was my aha moment. And I thought, I can do this. I can definitely do this. And I can then get to go to China more often as well.
Oh, what a pleasure. What a pleasure. And I think you pretty much answered the question, but then, so you didn't really, maybe you did in a way. Did you start the business out of necessity or purely because of your love for China? I kind of wonder whether it was both almost, because it was a necessity, in fact, because you just have to go back to China, and the two just married so well. I mean, would that be the right thing to say?
Yes, yeah. Well, a necessity in that, having come from Zimbabwe, I'd had a bit of a financial crisis leaving Zimbabwe with the dollar crisis and so on. And I wasn't really in a position to stop working financially, apart from not wanting to stop working. But also I didn't want to just go and do something just to, earn some pennies. So by combining my love of travel in China with, starting a new business, just seemed to make total sense to me. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
but I think I'd be flying high now, but having to start all over again. But that's okay. I mean, it's actually given me, a different way of seeing things with my latest trip to China last year.
Lovely. Yeah. Wonderful to be able to actually marry the two together, your passion and, into business. What a pleasure. Liz, I'd like to know about your experience in learning a new language. I mean, there have been so many research reports about the significant advantages of learning a new language in terms of, well, in your later years, and in having such a positive impact on cognitive health. And have you learned Mandarin? Oh, just wait. Ni hao ma?
Ni hao. Yes, well, it's easier when you're surrounded by a language. It's one thing learning from a book. My prospective daughter-in-law, who's from Taiwan, gave me these for Christmas and said she'd do on tutorials. So anyone who wants to learn Chinese, give me a shout and I'll tell them all about it. There are lots of online courses and so on, but it's much easier if you can actually speak it with somebody who speaks the language. It helps to know all the pronunciation and the different accents and so on. But yeah, it's definitely mind-stretching, Marilyn. There is no doubt about it. But it's also quite exciting in a way. You know, when you go to China and now you put that learning into effect and you ask for a bottle of water, or you order something at a restaurant and you ask directions and people actually know what you're saying. There's an incredible satisfaction in that. Plus, you know, when you're traveling, people need to appreciate that you've made an effort to learn their language. So it makes that whole communication thing, you know, meeting people so much easier. But yeah, I can highly recommend, if you're planning to go to China, definitely pick up a few words of Mandarin. But I'm really enjoying it, and it's very satisfying. The more I learn and the more characters I learn, the easier it's becoming. And I watch Chinese television on DSTV. That's also very helpful with pronunciation, and again, very satisfying when all of a sudden the words come into focus and you know what the newsreader is actually saying.
Yeah,
fantastic.
And I suppose also it helps with you going to China relatively often so that you can immerse yourself in not just in the culture, but in the language as well. And have you had any little chuckles along the way where a person hasn't got a clue what you're talking about and has a good old kind of guffaw, or have they been very pleasant and just, you know, tried to understand you? How's that gone?
Well, mostly they'll smile politely, you know, and you that means that they understood what you said. But no, they're very helpful. A lot of people speak English in China, and there's incredible translation apps. So yeah, but it does help to be surrounded by a language. You know, you're
absolutely
more good. Yes.
Yeah. And I think I've over the times that we've spoken, I think my take from you is that you're a real energizer bunny and you're oozing energy and vitality. Have you got a secret there that you can share with us?
Oh gosh, that's a difficult one. I think travel is definitely energizing. You know, just the whole process of planning and deciding where you're going to go and looking at videos and reading and so on. You know, that's so uplifting and energizing. And you know, actually being there, I was actually just saying to a friend the other day, you know, I can cast my mind back to almost every single time I've been to China, and it's crystal clear in my mind where I went, what I did. I can see the faces of people I met. Yeah, and for me, that's the big plus of travel, is that that human connection, and I do find that very energizing. I'm definitely a people person.
Yeah. And I think my take out from that as well is that you've also got a purpose now in life. And I think that is so important in retirement or in your non-retirement, but that purpose is so, as you get at any age, but especially as you get older, that purpose in life is so important. And you've got a huge purpose in your life with all the planning, with all, that's a huge deal. But now let's just sorry, carry on.
Just say something there. Yes. Well, that's why I decided to go the non-generic route with my travel. You know, I'm an older person, so I know what I can do, what my limitations are. So that's why I've targeted it. Can I mention the name of my company? Am I allowed to?
Please do. Yes, absolutely.
Very Young Adventures. So, you know, for me, that's what it's all about. Having adventures keeps you young. But it's also, for me, it's about helping other people to realize those adventures and to do things that they personally want to do. So that specialized, bespoke aspect of the planning is very, very important for me. And that's what's given me that huge sort of open door into China to go on all those adventures myself and then be able to talk about it firsthand.
Yeah. Let's move on to a little bit more serious stuff, and we're going to talk a little bit of finance now. And you actually alluded to it earlier, and you're a Zimbabwean pensioner, and I imagine that's probably been one of your biggest financial challenges to date. And we all know how the switch to the greenback wiped out the value of Zimbabwe's dollar-denominated investments and leaving so many people, pensioners, destitute. How did you recover from that?
Well, I left Zimbabwe just ahead of the wave. I sort of saw it coming. I was in advertising, so I was quite in touch with what was going on in business and markets. I had a lot of friends in the farming industry, and things started to crumble in the media business, which is what I was in. So I sort of saw it coming, and I realized that we'd have to make a move. My husband was a journalist. He's no longer with us, sadly, but that was also falling apart at the seams and becoming quite nasty. So we packed up and we left in 2002. The time wasn't right, though, to sell our house because the market was just not right. Everybody was heading out, and property prices weren't good. So I hung on to the house for quite a long time, and I was very lucky. When I sold it eventually, I was able to externalize the funds. So that has given me my pension, and also the wherewithal to start my business and to give me working capital. Yeah, so I've been very fortunate from that point of view.
Yeah.
That's been my story.
Yeah. And now, do you have a financial plan? Have you consulted with a financial advisor or broker, for future plans, or are you a go-it-alone person?
I've been go it alone. I did get some advice, which I was completely happy with. So yes, I will probably consult an expert going forward. So the state of the world's financial markets is pretty dodgy at the moment. So I think it definitely helps to have financial input from an expert who sees the bigger picture. So yes, I think it's something that I am definitely considering, but for now I'm toddling along on my own.
Yeah. Okay. And if you were to do it all over again, and if you were that magical age of 25, wouldn't that be nice? What do you think you would do differently?
I don't think I'd do anything differently.
Yeah.
I've loved my life, even having to up sticks and come down here. For me, coming back to live in Cape Town, was just something I'd always dreamed about doing anyway. Still being in Africa, a lot of people have had to go and live in completely foreign countries. And that's something I could never have done. So I've stayed in Africa, I've come back to Cape Town, where I was in my sort of early 20s. And yeah, so everything for me has been, I've had a great sort of innings, work-wise, life-wise, and long may it continue.
Ah, no, that's fabulous. But I've got two more quick questions. We're coming to the end of the conversation. So I just want to ask you two more quick questions. Future travels, where are you going next?
I want to expand my travels in Asia. I'm planning to go back to China probably in July. My son's coming here for his long holidays, and we'll probably fly back together. I want to get a multiple entry visa for China, which I can now, and just go in and out of China. I want to take the train from Kunming to Laos, and then I want to explore Vietnam and Cambodia. And then anything else that pops up. The great thing about traveling on your own, I love traveling solo, is you meet people along the way and they give you ideas and they tell you all the most incredible places that they've been to and say, keep it a secret, don't tell anyone. Probably do. Put it on the website. Yeah, so I'm going to just do a lot more investigations in Asia. And when I was in Bali, I met a very interesting photographer, a Kiwi guy, who does tours around Indonesia. One of them being orangutans and dragons, just the title. So I've teamed up with him.
Yeah.
And that's what I do. Along the way, if I meet interesting people with interesting adventure offerings, then we form a little loose partnership so that they become a man on the ground, a woman on the ground, to sort of expand my portfolio. So that's and the rest of South Africa when opportunity arises.
And I've got two more questions. The one, I saw a photo of you with two enormous dogs. They seem to be much bigger and taller than you. Quickly tell us what the story is behind that.
Oh, yes, I love that picture. They're Tibetan Mastiffs, and it was taken high up in the mountains in Tibet. I went to Tibet last year for the first time. I just loved Tibet. It's the most incredible place. It's a place that everybody should try and go at least once in their lifetime. And we were going through this mountain pass. It was over 5,000 meters above sea level. And I could barely breathe. You can't actually see the oxygen canister, which I'm holding between my knees. But I had to have bursts of oxygen every 5 seconds to yeah, and those were they have like display mastiffs, so you can go and take your photograph with them. And those two in particular were wearing hairpieces, which gave their huge ruffs. They love getting kisses and pats, and they were, yeah. So they don't get too bored with their job. But that was one of my incredible experiences in China. Was going to Tibet.
Yeah. I'm feeling that one needs to be pretty fit and healthy to be able to travel with you on your adventures. Is that correct? You've got to, I mean, going to places like Tibet, etc. You've got to be well.
What you do acclimatize? I mean, we left Lhasa after we'd had, a couple of days of acclimatizing to the higher altitude, and we were taking altitude sickness tablets and so on, and a canister of oxygen wherever we went. But we were traveling by car with a private driver. You can't go privately around Tibet. But no, you just adjust to what you can do, and that's why I'm very passionate about, I have personal experience with the things that I can offer. So I'll never suggest to anyone, if they're super fit, then I'll send them, on a 5-day hike in Tiger Leaping Gorge. Yeah. But if I can't do it, then I'll be quite honest about it and say, think about it twice.
And you'll adjust the trip accordingly. So that's fantastic. Yeah. Okay. And look, it's nearly time to wrap up. So thank you so much for taking part in this Retiree Reflections video and for sharing all those wonderful travel experiences. And I have one last question, and I want a brief answer, and I hope I'm not putting you on the spot, but why do you think everybody should put China on their bucket list?
Well, there are so many reasons. It's a culture which is totally unlike anything else you have ever known. And I think, that's very, very good for anybody to experience something 180 degrees, the opposite of what's familiar. So it's completely outside of your comfort zone. I'm sure you found the same thing when you went to China. But that is what is so incredible about it. You learn about new people, new history, new culture, new language, new food, and everything about China is just so huge, so massive, so ancient, that it just completely blows your mind. And I mean, for me, as I said, I went there the first time, realized I knew nothing, and then took it upon myself to learn everything. So yeah, so it's that completely new experience. That, and until you go to China, you don't know. You cannot talk about China until you've been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just a quick, very brief story from my end. When my husband and I were standing on the wall, the Great Wall of China, in one of the turrets at the top, and it was raining, and there was an elderly couple standing there trying to take, the wife was trying to take a picture of the husband, and I offered to take a picture of them, and then she said something, and I said, "Oh my gosh, you must be South African." And as it turned out, they live in the next suburb to me. And they were an 80-year-old man who'd had a knee replacement. He was determined to get up to the top of the Great Wall of China. It had been a life ambition, and he did it. And, absolute kudos to him. It was wonderful. It was very heartwarming. And I think it can be done. And it's an experience of a lifetime. And yeah.
Recommended. You only put one thing on your next bucket list, make it China.
100%. Yeah, 100%. But Liz, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you again, and really appreciate it. And all the best for your travels going forward.